Hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast today, titled What's Data and AI Got to Do with It? This podcast today is brought to you by Markov ML. And Markov ML is an agentic AI platform for modern go-to-market teams. And by go-to-market, we mean marketers and sales pros. So this podcast is for anyone who works with data every day. And as we know, data, you need that for better insights. You need to make decisions, take actions about turn, maybe. We've lots of data. It's spread out all over our systems and our apps. It's super hard, often, to get clear, informative answers. So the real question about data is, what are you doing with that information? How are you learning? Are you becoming more knowledgeable? And importantly, how do you use it to move the needle? So by that, we mean accelerate your pipeline growth and, of course, revenue. So as I said, this is for marketing pros. We will also have some sales pros and rev ops people too, anyone in the go-to-market function. Our goal of this podcast is to give you informative and practical advice. And we're also all about authenticity. We will tell you the real stories. We will applaud and celebrate the wins too. And no judgment, only learning. So let's dive in. Our guest today is Meredith Stowe. And Meredith, can you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background and how you got into marketing?
Absolutely. Well, first off, Deirdre, thanks so much for having me here today and talking about some of my favorite things, AI and data. So really excited to dive in with you. So I am Bay Area based, and I've been working with SaaS B2B enterprise companies for the last 10 plus years. And it's really exciting just to be here, just to talk about AI and data, because I feel like, and I'll talk a little bit about my background in a second, things never stop evolving. It's like hard to keep up. And, how I got into marketing, maybe a little less traditional. I actually started out on the media side. So always been part of marketing, but not quite, let's say, started out as a product marketer. Started out working at an ad agency for HP branding back in the day when they were merging through Compact, which was really interesting. Wow. And during that time, during doing the media planning, we were big on out of home, print, and digital was like this teeny tiny part of the budget. And it's really interesting now to see how that's evolved. And now everything is so measurable. And I think back then, you didn't have the data to really plan, right? You kind of had to just go based on like brand popularity, what was big, vast reach. And there's a little bit of you'd be able to regionalize a bit, but it's just been really cool to see how marketing has evolved with the advent of the internet and digital abilities. From there, I actually moved into the video gaming space and to the sales side of things. And I was selling into video game marketers. And I'm not a gamer. People are like, oh, you video game? I'm like, wish I was that cool, but I tried. I'm not that good. And then I really loved, so I was selling, and I really loved pulling together the plans and working with the marketing teams on the plans. But the selling piece I didn't fully love. Like, I was not the person, I'm kind of shy. Wasn't the one knocking on the door trying to get the deal done. And I did okay, but I realized I'm like, this may not be the right path for me. But I will say now, given where I am, I'm very grateful to have that sales experience. So I ended up getting my master's degree in marketing. And again, grateful for that, because up until then, had a very digital focused background, but didn't really have what I would say a true business background, journalism major, very I would say more qualitative type skills. And with this degree, I learned more about the ROI and data around marketing and the metrics that we need to have, CLTV, CAC, all of those things. And from there, I basically that parlayed my career into a marketing career. And I ended up in just kind of by chance in enterprise data software, working for a company, basically building up a marketing team and learning a lot along the way. And then here I am today now, but given that experience, I'm working with a lot of startups on their marketing strategies.
Great. Love that. I didn't actually know that about yourself in terms of the gaming and the sales side of it. And I 100% agree with you. If you sit close or inside the sales function, you have a true appreciation for how hard the job of sales is. and how you have more connection on what their needs are. So, we always have to work closely with our sales teams and leaders and listen to each other more. And, I always say we are here to serve sales, and hopefully marketing is a little bit further along and, at least a half year ahead, laying the groundwork.
Exactly. And I now I'm thinking about sales and marketing teams as go-to market teams versus just like we're marketing and we're sales. And even back when I was getting my master's degree, it was still very much like you're marketing to the consumer, but enterprise sales, I don't feel like is this craft that's people are talking about, right? It's a different type, or enterprise marketing and sales go to market. It's a very different beast than even traditional marketing.
Yeah, agree with that. Okay, so let's dive in. I do have some questions prepared. So what is data? Why is data and information critical to your success?
Oh boy, so I thought a lot about this. I feel like we wouldn't exist without data. And just starting from, you just said, okay, 6 months out, we need to be ahead of sales. Like we almost need to be like oracles. Like we need to know what's going to happen, and we need to have our finger on the pulse on like what's going on in the market, right? We need to know what the product team is doing. We need to be testing. There's so many things we need to know just in the planning phase and rely on data. The other piece is when you go into the executive team talking to the sales team, you're like, I have this plan. And you can go in and be like, I'm this amazing smart marketer. I have this plan. They don't care. Like you need to say why. Like you need the data to back up like why you have this plan and why you think it will work. And the other part is like you're asking finance team to make an investment in this plan, right? And to make that investment, you need to deliver ROI. And so again, you need to have data to say like, okay, this is the plan and this is why it's going to work. And then you need to have the data, like almost predictive data, like how you're going to make it work, right? So a lot of times, and what I mean is when you present a plan, you need to have data to like support the strategy behind it. Then you have the data around why it's going to work. And oftentimes I'll leverage historical data to be able to do that. The other part is the other piece is the data about your prospect. And another part of marketing I'm very passionate about is the database. A lot of people think I'm crazy. I'm a little maniacal about the database, but that is like, someone had said once, like, this is your IP. I feel like it's the most precious property a marketer can have. I don't think it's respected enough. Like what we're putting in that database, how we're managing it, it's so important to our success. And I'll go into more about that, but that's another piece because that again is how that's managed is really going to be how you speak to what works. And then the other piece is just the basic like marketing 101 piece around like UTMs, tracking, how you're going to like do attribution and whatnot. But all of it, basically, a lot of it is helping us make better decisions, but also helping the company understand the value that marketing is delivering to the organization and especially sales.
Yeah. I love that you're parsing out the different types of data and information you need at different stages. I'm going to sneak in a follow-on. If you don't have a lot of historical data in order to make predictions on the ROI, how do you convince your financial partner to invest?
That's a great question. So try to think about how I think sometimes you have to make guesses. If you think about finance teams, they're doing, if you're working with an FP&A team, they're doing planning for the organization, but no one really knows what's going to happen, right? Everyone's making educated guess. So I think a lot of times it is talking to people, doing research, saying, okay, I'm going to make these assumptions, and then having the right information to back up your assumptions. And say, you can also, when you're building out a plan, you can say like, this is best case scenario, this is worst case, and this is like something amazing happens scenario. Because again, we only control what we know, right? Yeah. So I think a lot of it, again, is just being very well researched in your planning. And now also with AI, I feel like you probably can get more data faster and better from different technologies, or even talking to like a Claude or ChatGPT to build that plan. But I think the question is to also poke holes. If you don't have the data, really try to push yourself and think about like, what's a wild card, talk to friends, like just figure out, like, just have something, because something is better than nothing.
Yep. I absolutely agree. And you can debate with your sales and finance partner and then come to an agreement and move forward. So yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So what is the hardest part about surfacing the right set of data and information to do an excellent job?
So this is where I want to talk about database, because I think because I work with a lot of startups that don't have, let's say, a data team, right? We have our HubSpots. Oftentimes, you have a small team, but oftentimes the team, especially with marketers, are experts in kind of their craft. But everyone, I feel like in marketing, should be an expert in database, because
Yeah.
that, again, to me, is the key to the business, the key to, at least to the marketing part of the business, and probably sales. So I found that really, one, just being maniacal about who the governance around the database. I've worked for startups where everyone has access to it and
Uh-huh.
people are just entering in information. But when you have a database, you need to think about how do we want to report on this information? What
Right.
are things that we need to have consistent that help us better report on the information within? And
Uh-huh.
then, what are the data sources that are going into it? And how do we ensure those data sources, the data is being transformed in the right way, so it's representing the right aggregate data set so we can report on it properly? So to me, that is extremely critical. There's also the lifecycle marketing piece too. So you don't want to deliver the wrong messages to the wrong people, because you don't understand who they are. And I really, again, when it comes to working with startups, it may seem like an odd investment, like you're thinking about next quarter and how to survive. But if you're investing in your lead gen programs and you're building your database, what you don't want to happen is to have 200,000 names in your database, not know who they are, not know what's good, open yourself up to liabilities because you don't know who's opted in, you don't know what they look like.
Uh-huh.
It's just a really important thing to think about early on. So, and again, there's so much beautiful reporting and insights you can get off of it. So working with sales, product, I'm like, what do we need to get out of these prospects in here? And then building a program that supports that, I think, is critical.
Yeah. Love that. It's also, if you're younger and you don't have 200,000 names in your database, start with a point of view, a strong opinion, get alignment, and then figure out what are those important fields.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't have clean, accurate, updated information in those fields, then you're going to be in a world of hurt down the line.
Oh, yes. And cleaning up a database is the most stressful,
Yep.
expensive thing. And it's a place you don't want to be down the road.
Yeah, exactly. When you're, oh my God, we have to scale. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. What do you think are the most critical building blocks to put in place in order to fully understand what's working? And maybe you already touched on it with your database, but is there anything else you need in terms of building blocks?
I think one piece that's important for everyone is the attribution piece. And attribution's kind of a funny topic I found. I
I
don't know.
think it's a dirty word in some rooms.
Yes, yes. Like, is it first touch? Is it last touch?
Oh, yeah.
Learned about attribution models. It's like, what do we all stand for? I like to keep, especially again, if you don't have a sophisticated team, you don't have a ton of time. Quite frankly, I just like first touch. I'm just like, however we got the name, let's give it attribution. But making a decision, because like some people like say last touch because that's like helpful to sales.
Right.
But again, and then the H model is like where you're giving like percentages to the different things. And that's probably the more realistic model because, yeah, in enterprise or in probably any type of B2B sales and probably in a lot of marketing, it's not just one thing, right? So one thing I think about is like having that communication, like, okay, how you're going to attribute, but also have some metrics in place saying that just because we do these activities and maybe there isn't a direct like last touch or first touch attribution to it, doesn't mean it's not working. So kind of creating understanding around the metrics and saying, you know what, if we see a lift here, so we're doing these things, these things are probably working too.
Right.
So I think just creating kind of communication with leadership and if the board or whoever is involved around like, hey, let's all get aligned on how we're going to measure this and like what's important.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, when you do implement a program, if it's not working, you change it. Like that's the beauty of all of this, right? It's like
Right.
you experiment and try different ways. But I think at the end of the day, again, if you're working with finance, working with sales, people want to know it's working so you can make those future investments.
Yeah. My experience is HubSpot's great at first and last, But if you want to get more sophisticated in terms of like, where's my ROI paying off and what does a typical journey look like? That's a lot harder to do. And I find when you're running hard and fast against your quarterly goals, there isn't enough time to step aside and say, okay, let's implement this new technology or new way of doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's like you're so busy just trying to make it all happen. And
Yeah.
I will say the other thing I've learned around metrics is there's not always hard and fast answer. I think we need to like soften a little bit and say we need directional answers, right? Like you may not get like, yeah, maybe something was an outbound, but we tagged it as an inbound. But it's like, again, if you're working for extremely large organization, there's like little margins I can understand, but just in our space, I feel like just have directional sense of how things are working is probably good enough to start with.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, and not debating it with the sales leader. Like we're in this together. It's a shared effort. And as long as the sales people are busy and you have enough capacity and hopefully building pipeline, then it shouldn't be a huge, long conversation. I agree with that.
And the other thing, when you just mentioned sales, another area of tension I've seen that, you talk about life cycle, people have different languages around like MQL, SAL, whatnot. And I am a staunch opponent of MQL, like marketing qualified. Like I think for marketers, it's easy for us to say, okay, I need to find this target, this profile, get the lead in, hit my number, and I'm done. I don't like that. I don't think that supports the whole philosophy around like go-to-market team, right? Because, oh, hey, I did my job, sales, you figure it out. I feel like in our world, it's really about us bringing sales, like sales accepted leads, the opportunities in the pipeline. You just said pipeline. It's like, we need to bring them the dollars, the leads that actually are raising their hands and ready to talk. And I feel it's on us, people may not agree, to make the leads sales ready, to get them ready to talk to sales. And that's a lot more work than just bringing in an MQL. So again, aligning on like what those metrics are with sales and leadership is extremely important. Like what is important for marketing to be doing for sales? And if sales like, no, I just want a lot of leads, I've got great SDR team, we can get them to convert. That's great. I haven't seen that work. I've seen the more like we need people that are raising their hands, things that are, if we're going to pay someone to talk to someone, they need to be ready to like, go through the qualification.
Yeah, and they will tell you when they're ready, which is even better. So you're not annoying them by banging on their door with another set of emails every week, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a better experience, and it's a more, I would say, trust building, valued experience, and less secret. It's kind of like dating. I always think what we're doing is like dating. Like you're not gonna want to date the person that's like kind of desperate. You're gonna want the one that you're like, oh, this looks like someone that's doing some good stuff. Like they're adding a lot of value. This is the conversation worth having.
Yeah, I like that. So, okay, do you have any scary data stories you'd like to share where it was like, oh, this didn't work quite as you thought?
I think it's data, like the database scares me.
Okay.
I mean, I've just seen a lot of scary things happen in terms of just like, even I've seen one company, they weren't able to agree on sales stages. So things were all over the place. And you couldn't report on anything. Yep. I get very nervous around, so I feel it's a privilege to be able to email people. Like to be able to like someone saying, I'm opting in, I want to hear from you. It's a privilege for a marketer.
Yep.
I feel like there's a lot of danger around if you email the wrong person or someone that's opted out, like that can cost your, especially with GDPR and there's like the Data Privacy Act in California, like you just have to be really careful with who you're emailing. And I had a situation where I think someone on my team like uploaded a bunch of names, and I'm encouraging my team, like be independent, like focus on your region. But at the same time, there was an email that went out to people that weren't qualified, like weren't opted in. Luckily, nothing happened, but it was definitely like a source of panic. Like, you don't want your email domain to get blacklisted. You don't want someone to turn around and be like, why do you have my data? So I get nervous on that piece of it. It's like, and again, ensuring that the right people have access to the data and that the data is being used properly.
Yep. It does mean that you as a marketer have to figure out other channels to attract people in and opt in.
Yeah.
And that means that, you're probably doing a mixture of things like offline events or content syndication.
Yes.
It's somewhat challenging because I think the modern way is to ungate content on your site. Like gating stuff, people are put off by that nowadays.
Yeah.
So, it's a little harder to actually get them to opt in and give their information.
You know what I'm finding? I feel like, okay, so just thinking back to like direct to consumer models, like the catalog is back. Like apparently catalogs are like bringing like revenue back to retail. And I feel like offline events are doing the same thing. It's like we're all so like our attention spans are just, being online is just, I think it puts us in kind of like this odd headspace part of our brain. It's almost like we're fight or flight and you can't consume information. And I'm finding that, and I feel that I've been working with more organizations on building out field marketing to do offline events. I'm feeling like one-to-one is becoming the thing again. Because it's almost like our demand for attention online is it's too great.
Yeah. And our phones aren't helping, not just looking at the laptop on the screen and on the desk. Yeah.
Exactly. So email can work, but I do feel like kind of traditional ways are coming back in.
I agree with that. We are social beings and we do like the physical presence. And I think people, they, regardless of your practice and what function you're in, you like the networking and getting to know one another. And like LinkedIn has done an amazing job of helping us do better networking, but we crave that physical as well.
Exactly. And still with LinkedIn, it's like a one-to-one thing. It's not a one-to-many. Like one-to-many has just gotten really challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I love going to events that are not massive, like hundreds of thousands of people, but like going to some sort of like very specific topic and learning that maybe have like 50 people. So you can really engage in active learning dialogue. Exactly.
And then see what your peers are doing and people you trust and you feel like this is a good use of my time.
Yep. I'm just going to sneak in one little question and then we'll move into our topics around AI. Do marketers have FOMO?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe all of us have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like everyone else is doing it better than I am, So I think absolutely.
Yep.
And our job. So I was thinking a little bit just about marketing in general. And, I read stuff like on LinkedIn about marketing. And I like our job. So did you see the Barbie movie?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So the monologue that like, what's her name? Ferrara? I think I can't remember her name, but she did the monologue about just being woman. I was like, there could be a marketer. Huh?
The mom in the movie.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like there's like a marketer. Like we're never enough this or that. We're not doing enough. We're doing too much, too loud, but no budget. Like I just feel like we have a really hard job and it's almost
constant chatter.
Constant. And then seeing what everyone else is doing, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not doing this right. And then I have to say, like, we have a very external role. And then people then tell you like, oh, so-and-so is doing that. Why aren't you doing that? And then you're just like, well, you have your reasons. Absolutely.
Or everybody on the planet is exposed to marketing.
Yes.
So everybody has an opinion about marketing.
Yes.
That's not necessarily the practitioner of, but they have lots of opinions. So that makes it a little harder. I agree.
But this is where data grounds us, right? Like this is where we get to equalize ourselves. Like, okay, I'm doing this because the data says this. And then you get everyone else on board because you're like, well, we're doing this for these reasons. Yeah. And then they're like, okay. So I like data because it's kind of like something to arm ourselves with just to help us. I don't want to say prove our worth, but just prove our reasoning.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, back in the day when we didn't have wonderful systems and sort of pre-HubSpot and we had sort of Marketo in the beginning, we used to just do it on spreadsheets. And it would take forever to massage and manipulate that spreadsheet so you could present a chart to get everyone on the same page. But like now, thank goodness we are not spending all those many, many hours or weekends doing this manually.
Right.
Which brings me to the FOMO part and the what's new and ever changing to your point at the very beginning of our chat today. So we're going to switch gears and talk about AI. and how it's being used with yourself and your teams. So are you using AI technologies today? And is it helping you be more efficient? I'm assuming you're using ChatGPT, whether it's in your personal life or otherwise, like everyone I talk to is using ChatGPT or, some version of it. So tell me, beyond that, what other AI technology?
So, gosh, I just want to start with, there's AI, like the personal, like thought partner AI. Like there's the, like, how can I do my job better AI? And then there's like the operational AI, right? And I've been less exposed to, just given, and it's kind of ironic, working with startups who don't have big budgets, who probably would benefit more from the operational AI, like automating workflows, that less so. But where I've seen AI and I've had teams use AI is more on the content side. It's kind of like the easy grab. Like there's tools like Writer out there, there's Jasper, even HubSpot has an AI component. So those are being used, but I say use them with caution. So kind of looking at them like these are great tools. And I even just worked on a project where I was using ChatGPT and Claude actually to assess a website and then basically say, like, how can we rework this? I was kind of seeing like who did it better. But I realized like every time I use AI doesn't mean my role is getting replaced, because you still need critical thought. You still need experience to know what's good and what's not good. You need a context of the company. And what's really cool, actually, is speaking of context of the company, like, a writer looks at all the company's documents. I have a friend who started a company called EPT AI, and they're basically more of like a support bot. And they help sales, kind of, they're not on a sales call and someone's asking a question, they help you be more technical faster. Like they're communication tools, but they're leveraging the internal knowledge within the organization to help people do better. So there's those kinds of tools from like a content perspective. I think being part of a larger organization, and I assume there's like an AI strategy. It's like, how are we leveraging AI to run our business better? And then from a functional perspective, how does this impact each function? Now going back to just marketing teams, my teams have used tools like, why am I forgetting? I feel bad for getting the name of it, but there is a tool where you put in a blog post and it spits out a video, basically based on the content in the blog post. I want to say it's Lumen, but I know it's not Lumen. I might have it here, but anyways, that tool is good. Like if you want to say, if you have like 10 reasons for something in a blog post, you can create a cool video. But it's awesome. I still feel like I've had better video outputs from a designer or video that producer that I've worked, like the human still does better products. Again, if you're strapped for resources, it's a good way just to get things done. I've also played around with a tool that produces like digital images for like blogs or websites. But again, it's like, I can't have the conversation like I would with a graphic designer with a tool. It's almost can be kind of frustrating. So I feel like there's a lot of good things out there, like for PowerPoint decks, not PowerPoint, God, I'm aging myself. For slide decks.
Okay, people still use PowerPoint.
Like slide decks, but I feel like, again, it's like, it gets me 25% or 50% of the way there, but it doesn't do the work for me. And I'm still like, and maybe I'm just idealistic, but I'd love to see more tools and I don't know if it's about prompting or like just getting better with the tools, but I just feel like it's like, get stuff that's like good enough.
Yeah. So if I can just sort of riff on that. So I think that the beautiful thing about the LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude is that the simplicity of it, right? You literally just do your prompt, get an answer, move on, right? I actually have my husband using ChatGPT now. He's no longer Google searching, and he is not in tech. So the thing about agentic AI or like automations, right? We are very familiar with what a workflow automation is if we're a HubSpot user, right? Or any of the marketing automation tools. It's doing the steps for you. It's taking it a little bit further. So the way I think about agentic AI is for a marketer. An in and out quick transaction, quick answer is great, but that's not something that you can collaborate and visualize and do together as a team. It tends to be a little bit more you as the individual trying to get your job done. But when you're working collectively as one team, which let's face it, marketers all do,
Yes.
then you're actually figuring out what are the repetitive tasks, what are the manual things that can be run and set up that have multi-steps, and how is that going to save time? And as long as it's secure, private, safe, and collaborative, then it should be good. Oh, hello, dog.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no worries. But so I hear you. Everybody's experimenting and loving the quick, but I think what marketers need when it comes to AI is something that's embraces how they operate as a team. And then, of course, if you're an enterprise, you have to make sure that it is, work with your IT folks and make sure it's safe and secure, and you're not putting your financial data in free ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many things to say around it. I was also even just thinking about annual planning, right? Like, okay, bring in AI, but then you don't know, it's like, and I think this is why a lot of startups aren't doing it. It's like, because you don't really know the effectiveness of it. Like, is this going to solve all our problems? How do I plan for headcount? How do I plan for AI solution? Like, where do I put my dollars and where do I place my bets? Like, it's a little scary.
Yeah.
So it's challenging.
Like anything new, I think when you have new things, you have to get comfortable with it and the human in the loop. So I love your point about it's not going to do our jobs and replace us. That's ridiculous, right? I even foresee a time where we're not talking about AI all the time. Like it becomes the norm.
Yeah.
We won't even refer to it as AI. We refer to it as the thing that does X, right? Like enrich your database or augment those set of target accounts, right? Or transcribe this YouTube video and give me a blog that I can then go in and personalize.
Yes.
So though we will talk about those set of things that we will do as marketers, whether it's content or research or enrichment. And then we won't be saying AI, I'm not sure, right?
Little stakes, right?
Yeah. So it's early in adoption phase.
And I think it's scary too, because I know I keep seeing, if you drive on the 101 in the Bay Area, like AI is replacing your SDR team. There's a lot around that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's like, I'm just curious, like, do you trust AI yet to automate and just have it communicate with prospects? Like, I'm still working on my trust with AI.
Yeah. So what I love about it is it speeds up. It does like an 80-90% of my lift.
Yeah.
Right? I do a lot of blogging these days. So I'll have a prompt, an idea, and if it can do a structure and an outline, and then I can go in and ask the LLM to enhance or assert this sentence or whatever, or cite it. I love it for that, but I will never just publish. I will always review, correct, change, because you will be penalized if you're just spitting out word soup.
Yeah.
Or, or is it on brand? Is it on message? You still have to check that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's doing a big lift for us. I mean, let's be honest, we produce a lot of content as marketers, right? Never ending.
Yeah.
For SEO purposes, etc. So if it can get me there much faster, then I'm a big fan, because there aren't enough hours in the day.
Yeah, exactly. Like I did to produce some guides. The product team couldn't get me some technical guides, but then I was able to produce something and then say, okay, guys, read this, correct it, and then get it out. So it does accelerate workflows. Another area where I get worried, and maybe this is like old school thinking, but like one thing I will like about using human knowledge and trial and error is you learn, right? And if AI is doing a lot of this work for us, like, are we going to get better at our jobs? Are we going to become more knowledgeable? Like, are we creating a knowledge gap for ourselves with AI? Because a lot of times, like the act of discovery and figuring things out is the beauty in becoming smarter. And if AI is doing it for us, like, are we just going to get smarter at working with AI? Or like, I just see like how teams are going to grow or knowledge will be built using AI.
Yeah. Well, think of like your day without AI. Think of your marketing day. You're doing a lift, you're getting campaigns off the ground. Now you're over here measuring and KPIing. And then you're over here operating and fixing your database, like you said. And you're like, it's too much.
Yeah.
So step back. What are those set of manual tasks that you can have AI take care of with some workflows, for example? And make sure the team is all brought along and fully comfortable and embracing it. And then hopefully you have time to actually focus on the really high value work.
Yeah.
You know, if it means like going to an event, or it means sitting with your sales team and doing more enablement, or, you know. So I think marketing is buried in these set of repetitive tasks that it's really hard to actually get your head above water.
And I like that because it's almost like we can now let the digital world automate and do its thing. And then we can go do out, like you were saying, the value things that we know is like driving value for the company, which is making those connections and talking, creating events in those moments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're coming up on our, 35 minutes. So I think we've covered some of this. What do you think is the hardest thing about embracing AI for a whole go-to-market team? Like, you've shared your sentiment and feeling, but what do you think is the hardest thing for the team to get on board?
I think it goes back to the classic thing around change and change management. And I will say I'm not an expert in that, but bringing people along to something new and different, and then kind of having everyone comfortable with the change and not fearing it, I think is probably the hardest part of it. And kind of communicating the opportunity with it. Like what, and again, I like how you said, well, hey, there's more we can do now because we're doing these things, and just knowing how to communicate to the value of the change is really important.
Yeah. And showing them that it will be much more motivating when they get to work on the hard problems and the important things, right?
Exactly.
I think most of us don't like the repetitive, like, oh, I have to upload that list and I have to clean it, and then I have to create all these sequences of emails. Like it bogs you down. You want to have the brain space to work on the really interesting hard problems.
Exactly. And even for the hard problems, like I feel, I don't want to say how much time I've spent like trying to think of like a little email subject line. And now it's like, oh, I have this thought partner that's going to give me. So I love that too. It's like even things like
gives you options. You still decide.
Yes. Right. Yeah. But it's like we don't have to start from scratch anymore, which is nice.
Yeah. All right. So to round us out on this wonderful day, and tell us any parting words of wisdom, and it doesn't have to be in the data information AI space, or for marketers listening, any parting words of wisdom.
I think we're in a really exciting time, and having now, I live in the Bay Area. I know you do as well. There was the whole .com thing, and I kind of look at this like, I think we're onto something really big here. And I would say embrace it, explore it, be curious, experiment. Don't be afraid to fail. Because quite frankly, I see these job descriptions like AI expert. I'm like, who is, if you're not a techie, there's no AI expert out there. We're all in this.
Maybe an LLM expert or something.
Exactly. We're probably not in marketing. So I think be open, be curious, and just explore. And when you're working on something, like you're saying, a mundane task, say, there's probably something out there that's going to help me do this better. And it's probably out there. So I think just like this is a really great opportunity for us to like reinvent marketing, and we're all in it together. And it's great fun because honestly, it can get a little boring. And like this is really excited for the future of marketing.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Meredith. I've enjoyed it. I've certainly learned some new things from you, so I appreciate that.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you, Deirdre, so much for having me on.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.